Thank you, Mr. President. My most distinguished colleagues, I am Ubah, Anambra South. My motion today, Mr. President, is on the need to investigate the alleged ill treatment and injustice suffered by Nigerian traders and businesses in Ghana. Senate note with concern alleged injustice and ill treatment of Nigerian traders and Nigerian businesses owners in Ghana. Aware that Ghana and Nigeria, as member states of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have reciprocal obligations under the ECOWAS protocol to their respective citizens to reside and do business within their territories without molestation. Further aware that following the desire of the Ghanaian government to promote trade and good neighborhood between Nigeria under President Kuffour's motto, named Property Owning Democracy, many Nigerian businesses went to establish in Ghana, creating thousands of jobs for Ghanaian citizens and generally contributing to the growth of Ghana's economy. Note that at the end of 2010, Nigerian businesses accounted for 60% of foreign investment in Ghana from the African continent. Concerned that of recent, the once flourishing economic relationship between Nigeria and Ghana has come under repeat threat as a result of recent hostile posture of Ghanaian authorities and the indigenous Ghana Trade Union towards Nigerian traders through the adoption of discriminatory legislations aimed at frustrating Nigerian traders and businesses, such as the passage of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council Act 865, that raised the amount of money in registering business owned by foreigners, mostly owned by Nigerians in Ghana, to $200,000, and further restriction and prohibition of foreigners from trading in particular markets. Molestation of Nigerian traders and other hostile acts directed against Nigerian businesses, such as the recent closure of over 600 shops and businesses belonging to Nigerians, carried out by Ghana Union of Trade Association, GUTA, on 2nd December 2019, and which remained closed up to the time of moving this motion. Enactment of Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act 865 of 2013, which prohibits ECOWAS citizens from engaging in small and medium-scale enterprises, with a further prohibition on registration of SMEs by foreigners, and the frustration faced by Nigerian citizens in registering business as a result of obstacles placed on the way of genuine Nigerian entrepreneurs, like the requirement of proofs of importation of $1 million into Ghana, as applicable to citizens of non-ECOWAS members, such as Ghana, India, ECT. Aware that Nigeria and Ghana had previously set up a joint task force from the Trade Ministry of the two countries to inspect business facilities of companies registered under the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme in both countries, and also organized an economic summit in Accra in 2010 in order to address the dangers of the above-mentioned threats to business interests of Nigerians in Ghana. Concerned that the above measures and the protection offered Nigerian traders under the ECOWAS framework have failed to address instant threats of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. I'm mindful that unless the Senate intervenes, the situation might deteriorate into a serious diplomatic and economic crisis. Further concerned that this allegation casts doubt on the commitment of the government of Ghana to genuinely reciprocate the sacrifice of Nigeria as a leading member of ECOWAS by guaranteeing the safety of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. Worried that the complaints of affected Nigerian traders and business owners are yet to receive the deserved attention by appropriate authorities from the federal government of Nigeria, even after repeated written complaints, and convinced that there is an urgent need to investigate this allegation and indeed draw the attention of the federal government of Nigeria and its relevant authorities to this unfortunate development. Senate hereby accordingly resolves to delegate the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Trade and Investment to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to investigate the issues raised in my motion and report to the Senate within 2 weeks. I so move, Mr. President.
The sponsor of the motion, Senator Patrick Ubah, has apparently changed the prayers. So what is on the order paper is not the prayers. He has one and single prayer only. And I think we have all heard the prayer. Now I can take contribution. Senator Yarobinos.
My name is Binos Dauda Yaro, representing Adama South. I rise to second the motion so ably articulated and moved by my neighbor and brother, distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Patrick Ubah. In seconding his motion, I would like to add that Nigerians are all over the world making contributions to the economies of various countries of the world. And some countries, especially in Africa, when they have their problems, they take it out on Nigerians. We have, in these chambers, debated the xenophobic attacks in South Africa against Nigerians. And we have seen from this motion the hostile action that is taken by Ghanaians against Nigerian businessmen in Ghana. Therefore, it is important for us to investigate this matter so that other African countries can see that when our citizens are attacked or hostile policies are articulated against them, we do not just let it go. It is therefore in this regard that I second this motion. I so second. Thank you.
Senator Issa Jibrin.
Distinguished colleagues, my name is Issa Jibrin, representing Kogi East. Mr. President, I have a slightly different approach to this issue. You know, every country, especially the developing countries, every country, irrespective of any form of trade agreement, tries to protect her indigenous entrepreneurs. And I think that is exactly what Ghana is doing. As much as possible, yes, Nigeria has invested a lot in Ghana. But the Ghanaians too are also mindful of their indigenous entrepreneurs, and there are some areas of businesses that they feel should be an exclusive preserve for their indigents. I think that is exactly what is happening here. We may go into investigation, probably through our Nigerian embassy there, but I want to believe that Ghanaians and Ghana is trying to protect its indigenous entrepreneurs. That is my submission.
Senator Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I support the intentment of this motion. It's very good. The intention is excellent. However, I differ from the procedure of achieving the intentment of this motion. Some few weeks ago, we passed a bill here on procurement, and we were trying to protect the interest of our local or indigenous companies. I mean, every country is one and the same. So for me, my understanding, like I said, the procedure, I have read through the motion, I have found that there are so many areas that are highly speculative. And I don't think, in this chamber, we'll work on something that is highly speculative. I can give you an example. Number one is the adoption of discriminatory legislation aimed at frustrating Nigerian traders. I don't think it's discriminating against only Nigerians. So I think it's speculative. And then to talk about in Ghana to $200,000, I think it's also, they're trying to protect themselves. It is not targeted to Nigerians. In as much as, yes, they are fallout to certain policies, but I think we should be very, very careful in raising the issue here and debating it. I think it is a realm of the executive function, to consider these issues before they are brought up to the parliament. So my own position on this is that, we should be very, very careful how we handle this kind of motion so that we do not raise a diplomatic row. If tomorrow Ghana says the Senate in Nigeria actually debated, considered this bill, we too, we are going to do our own. So I don't know why it is going to extend us too. So my own position is that, this bill is not yet matured. I mean, this motion is not yet matured to be brought in to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let the executive side, do their own investigations before we are pulled into it. Thank you very much.
President Abia South, I agree with the mover of this motion. I think the intendment of this motion is the protection of our citizens living outside of Nigeria, whether it's in Ghana or in Benin or any other place in Africa. Maybe the drafting may have been such to raise our emotion, where we talk about the question of discriminatory act and so forth. But that is the drafting. And I think that the remover of the motion has also realized it, which is why you can see that most of the items in the prayers have been modified to now take care of this. So I think that we should just let this motion seek to make sure that we call attention to the fact of what is happening to our citizens outside of this country and see a way of making sure that they are not unduly punished for reasons best known to the countries where they belong. I so submit.
President, my name is Senator Adamu Muhammad Bulkachua, representing Bauchi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I feel the mover of this motion may be because, sorry, not to bring you down, because of your age. Have you forgotten we still have a bag here in Nigeria we call Ghana Must Go? I mean, if Nigerians or Nigerian government has the right to ask all Ghanaians doing business, working with government and other institutions, even private sector, to leave Nigeria, and they abided by it. So, if such a thing is happening in Ghana, in which case, rather in this case, they were not asked to leave Ghana. No, they were only asked to shut their businesses where their business contravenes Ghanaian legislation or laws. So I think what we in this honorable chamber should do probably would be to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Nigerian Embassy, for them to give us on-the-spot assessment of what exactly is going on. Every responsible government must protect the interest of their citizens wherever they might find themselves anywhere in the world. But in this respect, in close by Ghana, a neighbor, an ECOWAS member, AU member, we must be careful to find out the facts first before we jump into conclusion. But I'm happy for one thing, that the mover of the motion himself has downgraded the prayers and call for such investigation. And I think in that respect, I will support him, so that we should investigate and know exactly what is going on and see what may necessarily have to be done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sandy Ono.
Mr. President, let me join colleagues, commend the mover of the motion, and also commend colleagues for the maturity they have exemplified in the discourse. When we speak here, people nationally and internationally should be able to know that there's a lot of maturity and objectivity that comes across. For me, what this discussion throws back at us is the necessity to do our country good. I visited Cape Town the other day in South Africa, and we're just walking across the British Embassy. And my younger brother, who was schooling there, drew my attention to the fact that it was empty. There was nobody there. Young and old. There was no pressure on the embassy. Very much unlike the situation in Nigeria, where as early as 4 a.m., 5 a.m., Nigerians are queuing to go to these places. When they see the desperation in your having to go there and stay there, they treat you the way they want to treat you. When you're comfortable with your country, when what you want you can find in your country, you stay in your country. Yeah, we know this is the era of globalization, but globalization in terms that are good enough for you, that give you dignity, not otherwise. So I share the view of colleagues who are saying we must investigate why Ghana and Ghanaians and their president are making bold to put together these kinds of stiff laws, and why they're asking that our citizens should leave. I don't think it's a quid pro quo thing. They are trying to do a revenge. If our stay in Ghana was adding value in such a way that we are invaluable or even indispensable, they wouldn't ask us to leave. We should investigate to know exactly what the situation is. 2, I have made the point here that even in colonial times, when people were colonial powers were talking in terms of free trade, there was also protectionism in their spheres of influence. Every country, every responsible country must protect its citizens, must protect its politics, must protect its culture, and must protect its economy. Every. So even when we're speaking of free trade and so on, when it begins to bite the country will stand up. That is why we are dealing with the border issues in Nigeria, and we are standing up to say it is correct because of the insecurity it causes, because of the damage to our economy it's causing. That is what Ghana is doing too. But let's get down to Ghana so that we can see for ourselves why this policy is being introduced, why these anti-Nigerian policies are being introduced, so that if there is something constructive we can do about it, we do about it at least for the benefit of friendly African and friendly and good neighborliness. That will be my position.
We read stories of how Nigerian businesses in Ghana and other African countries are being harassed, how they are seizing their products, closing down their shops. These have been contained in our newspapers, and I think all of us have read about it. And I'd like to correct the impression Senator Bokachoa gave when he said that Nigerians closed down Ghanaian businesses and forced them out. That was during the military regime. I believe under the Shagari government, there was a protocol signed by ECOWAS, which allowed free flow of goods from one country to the other. So if Ghana is enacting laws that prescribes $200,000, for you to register foreign businesses, and ECOWAS countries are not exempted, that means they are targeting ECOWAS countries, and Nigeria is an ECOWAS country. So I believe that the committee that we set up to go and investigate, it's very important that they go investigate and get back to the Senate so that we can now be better informed and now probably take decisions on resolutions we should take on the floor. Thank you.
Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari and Senator Bala Ibn Allah.
Because the Ghanaian Parliament may also decide that, look, we have a different view. You don't know the reason why we took this decision. And we are talking about our country. Anyhow a country is going to govern its place and their policy, it's not our own business to discuss it. It's not our business. It's their policy of their country. And this is the way they want to go about it. Even if they want to charge $1 billion, if you can fit in, you stay. If you can't fit in, come back to Nigeria. 60%, according to the mover of the motion, 60% of the investment in Ghana today are Nigerians. Imagine we needed that 30% alone from that 60%. They will employ some people in this country. If they believe they can't cope with $200,000 over there, they should come back home. We will charge them only $1,000. Let them come and register and establish their business here for us to be able to take the country to where we ought to be. Number two, Senator Bulkachua made mention about Nigerians sending Ghanaians away. No. It was the Ghanaians that started it in 1969, where the Aliens Compliance Order. They said in retaliation to what the Ghanaians did, probably is what led to the Ghanaian must go. I just decided to put the correction. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, if you carefully look at the prayers of this motion, carefully, then you...
Before, let me welcome you back, but before you misfire, all the prayers there have been collapsed into one prayer, and the prayer is here. So don't talk about what you see there.
Well, Mr. President, I'm normally guided by the documents supplied to me under your authority that will guide the business of the Senate. But I think even if you collapse the entire prayers here, they will lead to one thing, and that is whether this Senate has a responsibility to protect our citizens anywhere they are, to ensure that they conduct their life and businesses in accordance with the laws of where they are resident. And that if there is any complaint, whether this Senate has a responsibility to equally look into those complaints to see how it can adequately be taken care of. We cannot, by the mere experience of saying that Ghana has made some laws that, on quotes, appear discriminatory against Nigerians, and then we say we will not look. We have a responsibility to look at this. And the way to do it is, I don't know what the prayer is before Mr. Senate President, but I think there is nothing that goes out of place for the Senate to constitute a small committee first to find out what exactly went wrong that led to the closure of these shops that were allegedly closed by the trade union. What can be done to assist them maybe to reopen so that they can continue their business? And then in the alternative, what other measures can the Senate take to make the enabling environment in Nigeria as conducive as that of Ghana, so that these people will begin to come back and then build their economy from here. So I don't want us to throw this motion like that. I think it's important that, I don't know the prayer, but I think it's important.
I think I can read it for you. Okay.
We are sensitive to whatever is happening to any Nigerian, irrespective of where he stays globally. Let me say that Nigeria and Ghana happen to be the only English-speaking country around here. And then, no, but when I'm talking about proximity, and that whatever is humanly possible by this Senate should be done to bolster the relationship between Nigeria and Ghana along the path of mutual understanding. You know, so I don't think that this motion can be just thrown away like that. I am of the opinion that my colleagues should support this motion. Let us put a small committee. That committee is too big. Small committee of 4 or 5 people that will go and find out what exactly is happening and come and advise the Senate on what they think should be done to properly look at their situation in Ghana. We do not want to live as a Senate that will continue to close its eyes, to what is happening to our citizens around the world. So I think, my colleagues, I urge you to support the motion. Let it pass so that we can do something at least by way of intervention.
And there's only one prayer, that the Senate delegates the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Senate Committee on Trade and Investment to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to investigate the status of Nigerian businesses in Ghana and report back in 4 weeks. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Amendment. Okay, amendment Balanala. Across the world to protect our people. So we need the information from them. Are you okay with that? Okay. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me remark that we owe every single Nigerian the responsibility and obligation to protect the person and, of course, promote and protect the economic interests of such citizens wherever they are. And this situation is another dimension of either lack of understanding or maybe lack of intervention, early engagements between the two countries. When the xenophobic attacks came to a head in South Africa, Mr. President traveled to South Africa, of course, on a state visit. And of course, so much was done in a very bilateral fashion between the two countries. I think the time has come for Nigerian authorities to engage with the Ghanaian authorities with single mind of getting a solution to this perennial problem, because this thing has been happening for a long time. So we need to know what is happening, and together with the executive arm of government, we have to find a solution to this.